When Naruto fans start discussing who is the strongest Hokage, the names Minato and Hashirama typically come up near the top of every fan's list, and after the new information we have via the Minato one-shot manga chapter, the Minato versus Hashirama fights have gotten that much more heated, which is why in today's Naruto versus video, we're going to be taking an in-depth look and an honest look at Minato versus Hashirama, laying out their powers, their weapons, and skills to see who would win a 1 versus 1 battle. With Minato versus Hashirama, we have two of not just the most powerful Hokage in the franchise, but they're also two of the strongest characters in the series, and it's for more reasons besides Minato has the flying raijin and Hashirama has wood release, which is part of why this is so much of a fun matchup in order to go over. But even with this new information we have about Minato in the one-shot manga chapter, I still don't think this is as close of a fight as many of you guys might want to believe, and it's primarily because Hashirama is just that much of a matchup nightmare for Minato. Even with all the extra info we have from the one shot, if we looked at all the Hokage and had a live Minato and KCM1 Minato fight against all those Hokage, Hashirama is one of 2 Hokage who are the worst possible matchup for him in terms of raw power and skill, but also the number of win conditions that they have compared to Minato in any fight that he participates in is absolutely unfair to compare. That's not to say that Minato is a slouch. He isn't by any stretch of the imagination or any version of the definition of the word slouch. On top of being a master of 3 changes in chakra nature, having mastered wind release, fire release, and lightning release before his death, Minato was also a master of sealing jutsu, with it first being stated in Naruto volume 53 that Kushina taught him dozens of sealing jutsu from the Uzumaki clan, and in the Minato one-shot chapter we see Minato is directly stated to have learned those high-level sealing jutsu in a short period of time, taking at most a single day to learn the complexities of the various jutsu, which absolutely turned Kushina on in the process. Just based off of that alone, if there was a sealing jutsu invented, this guy probably knows it, and him learning the Uzumaki sealing jutsu is a really big deal since Hashirama respected the Uzumaki clan sealing jutsu enough in order to unite the Senju and Uzumaki clans by marrying Mito and forming an alliance with that clan. There's a reason why both Jiraiya and the 4th Raikage looked at Minato and flat out said that when it came to modern day shinobi, there weren't any who were close to him in terms of his caliber, and his mastery of the flying raijin was enough to impressed the 2nd Hokage multiple times during the 4th Ninja War, which in of itself is impressive due to Tobirama being the guy who made the jutsu, and he was innovative enough to create dozens of jutsu that are iconic in the series. Yet Minato was the one who made an even faster version of the flying raijin via the flying raijin stage 2, which a Sharingan cannot track the speed, in the flying raijin Gaiden Thunder, which can combine the jutsu with a ceiling barrier to teleport away a Bijudama fired off by both the Nine Tails during the Nine Tails instant as well as the 10 Tails as we saw in the 4th Ninja War. Whereas Genma and his 3-man team tell us that it takes all 3 of them as Jonin pulling the chakra together just to perform the basic flying raijin teleportation. Minato is shown spamming a jutsu that took 3 Jonin caliber shinobi using their chakra to perform. In fact, Minato's chakra reserves are a lot higher than a lot of people give credit for. Just on the night that he died, he is spamming the flying raijin. He tried to repair the complex seal on Kushina's body. He teleported away a Bijudama by the full Nine Tails. He fought against Obito. He broke the contract seal that Obito had with the Nine Tails. He summoned Gamabunta, who in of himself requires a huge amount of chakra to summon. He teleported away the entire Nine-Tailed Fox, and despite him saying that he was running low on chakra from teleporting such a massive entity of chakra itself, Minato was still able to use the Reaper Death Seal on himself to seal the Nine Tails into his body, and with a gaping hole in his chest, not only seal the other half into Naruto using the 8 trigram seal, but also program safeguards into that seal to have himself and Kushina show up to assist Naruto under very specific circumstances. That requires both a massive chakra pool to do all that, as well as insane chakra control and an even more insane understanding of sealing jutsu. That is what makes 16-year-old Minato's feats in the Minato one-shot manga chapter seem that much more believable. 16-year-old Minato, after training for an entire day to master the Rasengan, despite getting his chest sliced open by One Tails Kushina, Kushina and then getting a hole in his chest by 8 Tails Kushina, the kid was able to maintain the sealing jutsu on her and the 9 Tails, and then via his spiritual projection was able to not only counter Kurama's Bijudama, but was even able to push back Kurama's Bijudama backwards and at an angle, showing that he was overpowering Kurama, which is a major feat. That would literally put 16-year-old Minato over the War Arc Sage Mode Naruto we saw in the war, as well as over Pain. Pain was struggling with one half of 6 Tails Naruto and had to use Chibaku Tensei and couldn't contain the 8 Tails version of Naruto, despite the fact Naruto only had one half of Kurama's chakra. When you look at War Arc Sage Mode Naruto, that Naruto is stronger than the Naruto who fought against Pain. This Naruto was shown being able to go up not just against the third Raikage, a man who was making it a hobby to slapbox with the rampaging 8 Tails for fun, and he died fighting 10,000 shinobi himself, but despite that, Naruto with Sage Mode was still able to dodge and counter his attacks without the third Raikage noticing it, despite the fact that the third Raikage was easily above the 8 Tails in power. Just off of that alone, Minato goes over War Arc Sage Mode Naruto, he goes over the rampaging 8 Tails itself, and he goes over the Deva Path using Nagato's chakra. For further proof of this Sage Mode Naruto that Minato scales over was shown having a hard time with only one half of Kurama, despite this Naruto having Killer Bee assist him for a portion of the fight and having a portion of Kushina's chakra assisting him with the chakra chains. While she did assist Minato, there's important context that has to be added here. Kushina's chains are stated to have grown stronger every year, and this is a 16-year-old Kushina at the time. So the Kushina who had a portion of her chakra sealed into Naruto was 24 years old, so the chains had 8 more years of strength added, but 8 more years of strength added to those chains, even with it only being a portion of her chakra, is still considerable, given that she was able to easily hold down one half of Kurama despite not having her whole chakra. And yet, despite all this extra help that Naruto had, Naruto only had a slight upper hand on one half of Kurama, whereas Minato was facing the whole Kurama. And not only that, but his main body was exhausted from training and had multiple injuries that left him in the hospital for days afterwards. And yet, despite all of this, 16-year-old Minato was able to overpower Kurama. At only age 16, Minato again scales over War Arc Sage Mode Naruto, the Naruto who fought against Pain, the Deva Path using all of Nagato's chakra, and quite a few of your other favorite Akatsuki members. Another thing that makes Minato so deadly is his genius IQ and intelligence. He's someone who is not only very well versed in ninjutsu and pretty much all ninjutsu that exists, he knows a lot about it, but as we saw in Naruto Volume 27, even when it's a brand new jutsu that he's never seen before, like say Kakashi Shidori, he's able to take one look at the jutsu and spot a flaw in the jutsu almost immediately, and we see this again when he sees Obito's Kamui in the flashbacks for Naruto Volume 53 when Kushina explains to Naruto how he was born. It only takes him seeing the jutsu twice before Minato already figures out his weakness and has a plan in place to counter, and he executes the plan while simultaneously coming up with the plan to deal with the 9 Tails on top of that. Even after many years have passed since his death, when Orochimaru was running wild behind the scenes, we had characters like Anko who saw the threat of Orochimaru in the Chunin exams, and she said she wished that Minato was still around because he'd be the only one who could take down Orochimaru in a way that minimized the loss of life and resources, and was still used as a measuring stick for speed for shinobi by people like Yamato and the 4th Raikage, feeling the need more than once to directly scale Minato's speed against KCM1 Naruto speed. As a 9 Tails Jinchuriki, while in his Edo Tensei form his base is actually weaker than his alive form, Edo Tensei 9 Tails Minato is actually stronger than alive Minato, and having one half of the chakra from the 9 Tails is a major boost in power, and it adds to the fighting style of Minato, making him that much more deadly. When he was alive, Minato had to rely mostly on his speed and his quick strikes. While he was certainly a powerhouse, as we've established, he used his speed and intelligence whenever possible. However, the 9 Tails version of Edo Minato can not only make a Kurama avatar, but he can also make a giant Rasengan while in that avatar, shoot off multiple Bijudamas, and he has a chance to showcase far more destructive capability than what he was able to do before. While it's easy to look at KCM1 Minato and say that he's benefited from getting Kurama, or that without the flying raijin he's not that fast, this actually isn't the case. So due to the mistranslation that Viz Media has for the manga, when you see all the Hokage arrive to the battlefield during the 4th Ninja War, we have Tobirama and Hiruzen praising Minato for his speed, reaching the battlefield first. Viz Media translated it as teleportation. So Viz often mistranslates body flicker as being a teleportation jutsu. What was actually being referred to here was Minato's body flicker speed being fast enough to reach the battlefield before the other three Hokage. He saw the situation at hand, he threw his kunai in front of Naruto, teleported away the Bijudama of the Ten Tails, and then he teleported to his kunai afterwards. That's just how fast this dude's speed was, that he was appearing in and out of sight so fast that sensory ninjas weren't even able to keep up with his movements until the dude slowed down and allowed them to track him. Despite the fourth Raikage using his maximum speed, Minato was shown not only reacting to his attack when they fought during the third ninja war, but also taking the time to throw his kunai in the air, teleport away from the Raikage's attack, teleport back to the kunai, and then go for a counter attack. Realize that Killer Bee was about to attack him, counter Killer Bee's attack, place a ceiling marker on top of the tentacle of the Eight Tails, and then get behind Killer Bee for another attack, all in the process before the original kunai hits the ground. So Minato's speed, both with the flying raijin as well as with his own body flicker, are just outright insane. There's a reason why the Nine Tails in the Minato one-shot manga chapter looked at 16-year-old Minato and said, Jesus, this kid is of the same tier of Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage. Minato was just that broken, and the scariest thing is that he died at the age of 24. So he died before he ever reached his prime in power. And had he stayed alive, he would have gotten even stronger. With Naruto and the Naruto Resident story flat out saying that had Minato stayed alive, he would have been stronger than the Hokage Naruto that you saw in Boruto. The problem for Minato, however, is that being in the same tier as Hashirama is like being in the shadow of the greatest of all time. Nothing you do ever really comes close, but you're always going to be measured to the person whose shadow you're in. Now, there's this argument that a lot of people make trying to downplay the statement made in the Minato one-shot of Minato being in the same tier of Hashirama, with people saying that Kurama was referring to Minato's being skilled in sealing jutsu on the same level as Hashirama, but that's a both ignorant argument as well as a bad faith argument. Kurama wasn't talking about sealing jutsu here, and I'll tell you why we know as much. Hashirama sucks at sealing jutsu. He doesn't know any of any note. Go through all the Naruto data books. Hashirama does not have an extensive list of sealing jutsu that he's listed with knowing. If we go back to the Edo Tensei Hashirama versus the Edo Tensei Madara fight, one thing we see is that Hashirama has Madara pinned down by the deity gates, and he's just standing around twiddling his thumbs going, yep, sure would be nice if we had some sealing ninjutsu specialists around here. I guess I gotta wait for one of them to show up to seal away Madara. He doesn't know any notable sealing jutsu, because if he did, he would have sealed away Madara when he had him restricted by the deity gates and Madara wasn't able to utilize all of his chakra. However, Hashirama not having a sealing jutsu, it doesn't make him weaker than Minato. Hashirama was just so strong that this man was him, her, or whatever other pronoun that this guy wanted to go by. There's a reason everyone is still trying to get their hands on Hashirama cells, even in the Boruto era. This dude is just that big of a genetic freak of nature. Hashirama is one of the few shinobi in the entire history of Naruto to have mastered all 5 changes in chakra nature through natural methods. So no cheat codes like being a Ten Tails Jinchuriki, no cheat codes like having a Rinnegan. With Hashirama, on top of being that skilled, he's also someone who had the Kekkei Genkai for wood release, which on top of being super rare, can also both restrain, suppress, and absorb chakra of the people that are trapped inside of wood release. His wood release attacks have multiple ways to kill you when he uses them, from crushing you to death to using what Madara did versus the 5 Kage and release that poisonous pollen that can take you out and eventually kill you. Despite being the reincarnation of Ashura and being most noted for yang release chakra based attacks, Hashirama is also a master of yin release, being able to use high level genjutsu that trapped the 3rd Hokage during the Konoha Crush arc in the manga, making him the only reincarnate of Ashura that we've seen in the manga be able to perform such a high-level genjutsu, which it should be worth noting. If you're only familiar with Naruto's anime, you're probably thinking Tobirama used this jutsu against the 3rd Hokage. However, that isn't what happened in the manga. Hashirama was a guy so strong that he basically kept the Biju as house pets and had them under his control, enough to the point that he thought of giving them away to the other villages in order to try and stop the fighting of the First Ninja War, when in reality he just made it that much more of an insane war as a result. He's able to make 1,000 hand Buddha statue that can not only slapbox with the Nine Tails and hold its own against a perfect Susanoo, but it can also move autonomously independent of Hashirama, being able to perform its own attacks as well as use any chakra-based jutsu that Hashirama himself can use in battle. So Hashirama could use a wood release jutsu, a water release jutsu, and then that statue could use lightning release on top of Hashirama's water release to perform a pretty devastating combination ninjutsu that is both high in damage as well as in wide-scale destructive capability. Even scarier, this isn't the only thing that Hashirama can summon. He can also summon a giant wood release golem that has the ability to fire out the nine tails and overpower it. Like Minato, Hashirama is a master of Sage Mode, but unlike Minato, we don't know what his Sage Mode is, and we don't know how Hashirama can just blink his eyes and basically go into Sage Mode right away. He's not having to stash shadow clones away to gather nature energy for him so that when his main body runs out of nature energy, he breaks the shadow clone in order to go right back into Sage Mode. He's not having to rely on the nine tails to gather nature energy for him, nor is he having to use toads and other creatures to get nature energy for him. The dude basically blinks his eyes, goes into Sage Mode right away, and is able to continue fighting without having to worry about the Sage Mode wearing off. However, not only does he get another boost in power when he's in Sage Mode, but he's also shown maintaining Sage Mode for a freakishly long period of time as well. There's a reason why this guy is hailed as a god of shinobi for a long time, earning that title well before the third Hokage would ever have it. The guy was able to fight off both EMS Madara and the Nine Tails on his own for an entire day in battle with so much destructive output it reshaped a chunk of the Land of Fire into what we now will call the Final Valley or the Valley of the End, and caused people to erect statues of Hashirama and Madara after that battle in order to pay respect to it. When he was brought back as an Edo Tensei, the dude was surrounded by high-level shinobi like Edo Tensei, Rinnegan Madara, EMS Sasuke, KCM1 Naruto, and this guy wasn't fazed by any of those guys' power. He even joked that when he saw KCM1 Naruto that he's like, hey, this guy almost has as much chakra as me. But when he sees Jubi Obito, he goes, yeah, that guy, he might be stronger than me, but we don't know if he's referring to his Edo Tensei version of himself or if he meant his alive self, which there's a difference. Kabuto and Orochimaru, with both of their Edo Tensei, they did not bring back the shinobi at full power, but in the war arc, that version of Edo Tensei that we saw Kabuto and Orochimaru use, they did bring them back closer to full power, but it was never stated with a quantifiable number for the claim that Tobirama said when he said that they were brought back a lot closer to full power. Was it 90%? Was it 95%? Was it 99%? We don't know, so we can only speculate. In Naruto chapter 620, we see that despite not being at full power, just a casual flex of his chakra was enough to make shockwaves and cause physical damage to a surrounding area. Even after the guy made 10 different wood clones, which would have split his chakra 10 different ways between all of the bodies that he has, the man was still able to sustain a high Kage level barrier meant to restrain the Ten Tails. Fighting Hashirama in battle is no easy task either, because as we're told more than once in the manga, he's able to do auto healing with his body that only Tsunade and Naruto come close in being able to replicate what he did. Tsunade both with her creation rebirth jutsu and her 100 healings jutsu, and Naruto with his regenerative powers as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Hashirama is able to fight effectively from a distance by making the wood release dragon jutsu, which can not only attack from afar, but it can also restrain his targets and drain away their chakra once he's ensnared them in the attack. While the speed of his body flicker has been shown to be below Minato's speed, he's not slow by any means. We see that his body flicker is at least fast enough to outspeed the full body Nine Tails when he's fighting against Kurama and Madara. In the Naruto Ninja Escapades OVA, Hashirama was not only battling Madara and reacting to his attacks, but he's also shown using a wood release jutsu to not only tank a Bijudama, but literally bounce it off of the wood release defensive barrier as well. He's a man who has a taijutsu skill that not only goes above the third Hokage, someone who even at the age of 69 was still considered in universe to be the strongest of the 5 Kage from Naruto Part 1. But he was also able to outperform Madara, a genjutsu genius, to such an extent that it took almost 60 years to pass by before Madara finally saw another shinobi with skill that made him go, yeah, this guy might be the best taijutsu user I ever fight, and that person was 8th Gate Might Guy, someone who was bending time and space with his punches, and Madara got so turned on by it that he went, yeah, this guy, he's the strongest person I ever fought at taijutsu. Anytime you have to start getting into Ten Tails Jinchuriki levels of power, 8th Gate Guy levels of power, which in the case of the 8th Gate is a 100 times multiplier over the base in order to get to the level Hashirama is performing with it taijutsu, you set the bar that high. You can see why it's both a gift and a curse to be in the same tier as someone like Hashirama. You might be in the same tier, but there's levels to it, and you are not there if you're Minato. A hypothetical battle of Minato versus Hashirama is one where you think, due to Minato having both a raw speed advantage and having a vast knowledge of sealing jutsu, that Minato would have a lot more win conditions, but Hashirama has enough raw power to dispose, in my opinion, that this fight is his easily. In fact, it literally pains me to say that because I don't particularly care for Hashirama's character. I think he's overrated, and he's actually one of my least favorite characters in the series. But for a video like this, I have to set my bias out of the equation here and look at the raw data, which means I also have to disclose any potential bias I have towards his character in the scenario, but it's just so overwhelming that you cannot overlook what Hashirama is able to do to Minato in this battle. If we had a live Minato and a live Hashirama, and we dropped them in a hypothetical scenario where Hashirama and Minato in a bar, Hashirama walks up to Kushina, smacks her on the ass, and him and Minato just square up, I don't think there's enough here to justify Minato winning. While the updated info that we have from the Minato one-shot does show us that 16-year-old Minato was already strong enough to hold his own with the Nine Tails, it was also that 16-year-old Minato who had help as well, while he was also exhausted and injured. I don't think that there's enough there to say that even fully healthy, he is going to be able to outlast the Nine Tails alone in a battle. When you go to the 24-year-old Minato who fought against Obito and the Nine Tails, is still different from Hashirama fighting against Madara and the Nine Tails, because Hashirama was having to fight a whole menace of the Nine Tails and fight someone as strong as EMS Madara simultaneously, with that EMS Madara still being stronger than the Obito who Minato fought, whereas Minato was able to split up the fights and deal with them in back-to-back manner. He never had to fight them simultaneously. Despite Minato having a speed advantage over Hashirama, he doesn't possess nearly enough power to do significant damage needed to Hashirama in any battle. Hashirama's wood domes will take a Bijudama's blast and bounce them off of it when the Nine Tails fires them, which means that they're more than durable enough to withstand anything that Minato does with the Rasengan. Even with Minato's incomplete Rasengan being shown to counter Kurama's point-blank range Bijudama, I don't see him having enough destructive damage to be able to break through any of the defensive barriers that Hashirama has. You think that Minato has a flying raijin, so it's a good chance that that will level the playing field, but I don't think that's close either. The thing you have to remember is that Hashirama is stated by Tobirama to have fought alongside him in combo attacks in the past where Tobirama used a flying raijin. We learn as much when Tobirama compliments Naruto on adjusting his attacks simultaneously when Tobirama used the flying raijin, saying that it was almost like he was fighting alongside his brother Hashirama. As we saw with Madara, if you fought someone using the flying raijin enough times, you can begin to start working out ways to counter the jutsu. Hashirama would have enough experience fighting alongside Tobirama and seeing the jutsu used that even if Minato is better at it than Tobirama, like we're told, he'd be able to adjust to it rather quickly. If we go with the condition of Minato decides to throw it all away and use the Reaper Death God, we run into the problem that this jutsu, the Reaper Death God, has the same problem that the Rinnegan's human path has, which is someone who is physically stronger than you can outright overpower that jutsu and cause you to exhaust yourself in the process. Hence why Hiruzen was not able to rip out Orochimaru's soul, and why Nagato was not able to rip out KCN1 Naruto's soul when Naruto was resisting him. By the time that Minato ever got to a point where he would be forced to use his jutsu, all the damage that he would sustain from being Hashirama's punching bag would leave him too fatigued to accomplish this, since the damage that Minato takes, he would be using his chakra to amp up his stamina in order to continue fighting. The other issue that Minato runs into with the battle with Hashirama is that Hashirama has way more win conditions than Minato, like I said previously. Basically, it's due to his wood release, which can both absorb and suppress the chakra of a person, and with someone like Hashirama, that chakra suppression is extremely quick. It doesn't take a whole bunch of seconds like it did with Yamato. Minato isn't someone who has insane raw physical strength like, say, Kisame, who even after he had his chakra suppressed and was battle damaged from taking hits from KCN1 Naruto in a full battle with 6 and 7 gate guy, he was still able to break out of Yamato's wood release in order to kill himself before they get intel about the Akatsuki. Minato has not shown he has that level of raw physical strength. The other thing is that Hashirama has jutsu like the advent of flowering trees, which makes that force of trees that release the pollen that when inhaled render the target unconscious and can eventually kill them. Hashirama has a few more wood release jutsu I've not named that could be used, and should he trap Minato in them, his chakra suppressed pretty quickly, and that would be an issue for Minato since Minato uses chakra to amp his physical stats for speed for things like the body flicker, and if he can't use chakra, he can't teleport using the flying raijin. While Minato does know various chakra natures according to the 4 Naruto databooks, he was said to have learned sealing jutsu, various sealing jutsu from Kushina. However, we don't know with certainty what those chakra-based ninjutsu that Minato has for the chakra natures are, and we also don't know what sealing jutsu he knows. Just with the chakra-based ninjutsu that Minato might know, since he has multiple chakra natures he's mastered, Hashirama can counter him because Hashirama has mastery of all 5 changes in chakra nature. With the sealing jutsu, we don't know if any of the sealing jutsu that Kushina taught him would be able to trap someone like Hashirama. Hypothetically speaking, if he was able to trap someone like Hashirama in a sealing jutsu, Hashirama has displayed to us that he has raw physical strength that will be able to break out of those sealing jutsu that Minato mastered. We see more of a difference in these two characters when it comes to their base when we look at their base forms via the Edo Tensei. When Orochimaru was controlling the Edo Tensei Hokage, Minato and the other Hokage were trapped under his control and they are unable to break free. While Tobirama was able to push it down a little bit and suppress it, he was still trapped under Orochimaru's control. However, this dude Hashirama was able to break out in just his base. No Sage Mode, nothing else. The dude just casually broke out of it, wore that goofy shit-eating grin that he normally wins, and Orochimaru was like, oh my god, this dude right here, that's that guy. While it's extremely likely, like Minato probably could have broke out of it. He says, hey, Kurama, give me some chakra. The fact remains that like base to base, he was held under active control by Orochimaru, whereas Hashirama broke out of it like it's nothing, leading to Orochimaru to have a whole internal monologue in the manga where he's fanboying over how great Hashirama's power is. This should be worth noting. Orochimaru did have an entire body of Hashirama cells amping his power, and despite this amp that he got, he could not suppress Hashirama. In theory, if we just had these two going at it and say Minato's Rasengan just blows away the wood release dome that Hashirama has. You also have the multiple Rashomon gates that are capable of tanking Biju Dama blasts. Even if Minato's able to enter into Sage Mode, Hashirama can just go into Sage Mode as well, and it just completely scales him over anything that Minato does. Now, say if we go into Minato and he's using KCM1, that is a stronger Minato due to the effects that come from having someone having a Biju sealed inside of them, where the Jinchuriki itself is stronger than the Biju on his own, something that's stated multiple times in Naruto's manga. With someone as strong as Minato in Biju mode, you've got an expanded ability to enter into various combat formations that you can use. While this Minato has a much better chance at victory due to the massive boost in power, I don't think it's enough to take out Sage Mode Hashirama at this point. I don't think he gets that big of an amp to close the gap with Sage Mode Hashirama. While Minato does some crazy stuff as a Jinchuriki, enough stuff that I'd argue he was low-key more impressive than his own son, Naruto, who was using Kurama's chakra like crazy during the war. He outclassed Naruto as a Jinchuriki until Naruto became the Jinchuriki for all 9 Biju. I don't think we see Minato's Kurama avatar and giant Rasengan that was being shot off being able to suppress Hashirama to the point that it would be a victory at all. If anything, this becomes a similar situation as the Flying Raijin situation. Hashirama has enough experience fighting under those circumstances. Hashirama faced Madara, who was using his Susanoo to amp the Nine Tails and fighting against a bloodlusted Madara, and was able to come up with various combinations of attacks to hold both of them at bay for an entire day before Mito Uzumaki stepped in to take control of the Nine Tails from Madara using an unknown method like we were told in Naruto Volume 53 by Kushina. Biju Avatar Amp Rasengan or Biju Dama. If Hashirama's in Sage Mode, there's a good chance that all that's going to be countered by him, in my opinion. There's also a strong argument that wood release will be able to outright suppress the Biju chakra inside of Minato if he uses Biju mode. Though that's where some of the speed questions come into play, because Minato's raw speed and base alone was cracked, but now You have Kurama's chakra amping up his speed, and you got a problem. There's a reason why if you go back to the war, KCM1 Minato looked like a menace even before he got that mental nerve when he learned that Obito was a masked man. This dude Minato is just speed blitzing around the battlefield like crazy. You can argue that Minato is too fast for Hashirama to pull off an attack needed to suppress his Biju chakra, but Sage Mode Hashirama has more ways to suppress chakra because he can also use those Sage Gates to suppress both his movement and his chakra, which is how he was able to stop both Edo Tensei, Rinnegan Madara, and the Tento. So there's no question that if Hashirama's able to use combination ninjutsu and distractions like the Buddha with 1,000 hands to launch attacks, that he can catch Minato at the right time to drop those ceiling gates on top of him and seal Minato's movements and his chakra. Again, Minato's speed is like the main thing he has going for him. In Justice Base, he was already faster than 4th Raikage and KCM1 Naruto, so if you add in Kurama's chakra to someone this fast with the speed amp, assuming he uses his chakra for speed, which he would in this scenario, it becomes a nightmare to land a hit on him. But Minato's problem is that he lacks the strength to do damage against Hashirama. Another thing we have to take into account is that if this is a war of attrition, a live Sage Mode Hashirama versus KCM1 Edo Tensei Minato wouldn't necessarily need to win the battle via raw power, because as an Edo Tensei, the dude has infinite stamina, and Hashirama will eventually tire out at some point, to a point that if Minato were able to use the Reaper Death Seal, it would be done at some point where Hashirama can't actually overcome it. So that's a win condition that you could give to Minato. There isn't anything that says that you can't use the Reaper Death Seal when you've already got a dead body, but that's venturing into headcanon territory. We don't know for certain that's something he could do. And another thing that KCM1 Edo Tensei Minato has for his advantage is that Hashirama doesn't know any sealing jutsu, and the deity gates themselves, while they seal your chakra and they restrict your movements, they themselves aren't a sealing jutsu. That's really the only way Minato could come away with a realistic win, but with Hashirama, he has so many different ways to immobilize Minato in terms of win conditions, and if the battle drags him into Sage Mode, Hashirama clears and wins the moment he connects it with Dragon or a full power direct hit on Minato. If this is KCM1 Minato, it becomes a battle of attrition because Hashirama doesn't have sealing jutsu, but again, we don't know whether or not Minato has other sealing jutsu that can be used to seal an Edo Tensei if Hashirama is in Edo Tensei, or if he's even able to use the Reaper Death God as an Edo Tensei if it's against a live Hashirama. But Edo Minato does have a better chance of winning despite being weaker. In this instance, it's just a bad matchup for Minato versus Hashirama. A live Minato versus a live Hashirama results in Hashirama stomping. KCM1 Minato versus Hashirama results in a higher degree of difficulty, but Minato gets bailed out due to being able to regenerate as an Edo Tensei, and theoretically he can win if he outlasts Hashirama and is able to use the Reaper Death God as an Edo Tensei. If it's Edo Tensei Hashirama versus Edo Tensei Minato, it's the same result as before, because for the most part, this fight is one-sided, and it's not a close fight like some of the other matchups we have in this versus playlist that you see on the screen right here.